Alright, let me try to walk you through this mess in full detail, because this has honestly turned into something that's impossible to wrap my head around. It all started when my cousin, who's 42, was released from prison about 3 weeks ago after serving 13 years for child molestation. Yeah, you heard that right. It's messed up, and this is something I can't just gloss over. It's essential to understand the gravity of that situation because it plays into everything that's happened since. I'm 20, living with my boyfriend, who's 26, in a small rental house that's right next door to my cousin's place. We're renting the house from his parents, which I thought would be fine, but clearly, that decision led to some unexpected complications. Before my cousin got out of prison, my mom didn't visit me very much, which in hindsight should have been a clue. She wasn't completely absent, but I didn't see her much, and it didn't seem like a huge deal at the time. But after my cousin was released, it was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, my mom was coming over every weekend without fail. And I mean every weekend. I was a little thrown off because her visits were getting more frequent than I'd ever seen before. But what really caught my attention was how she was acting when she showed up. She was always perfectly done up, hair and makeup done as if she was going to some event, not just hanging out with her daughter. That seemed odd to me, especially since she's usually more laid back about that kind of thing. I didn't think much of it at first, but there was something in her demeanor that was hard to ignore. She started acting really flirtatious too. I'm not talking about casual friendly banter, but like flirting, as if she were trying to catch someone's attention. I didn't want to jump to conclusions though. I'm not the type to stir drama unless I'm absolutely sure of something. But deep down, that little voice in my head was starting to whisper something that I wasn't ready to face. The reason I had that voice in the back of my head? Because my mom has cheated before. It's not a secret. It's part of our family history that's been hard to forget, and that's what made everything feel off. I didn't want to overreact and accuse her, but the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. So, one day we're all sitting around playing cards as a family, and my dad randomly texts me. Out of the blue, he asks if my mom is alone with my cousin. At the time, she wasn't, so I told him no. But then, just a few days later, everything went sideways. I woke up to a phone call from my dad. He didn't even waste time with pleasantries, he just jumped straight to the point. "Did you know your mom's been messing around with my cousin?" I swear, it felt like the ground beneath me just collapsed. I didn't know how to process it. This wasn't just some rumor or gossip, this was my dad, who I trust, telling me something I couldn't even begin to comprehend. After everything that had happened in our family, I thought my mom was done with that part of her life. I thought she'd learned. But no, apparently, I was wrong. I had classes that day, but before heading to school, I went to my dad's house. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I had to confront her. When I walked in, I went straight for it. "What's going on? Are you really messing around with my cousin?" And she brushed it off like it was no big deal, as if it was the most casual thing in the world. "Nothing's going on," she told me. "We're just friends." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But instead I stayed calm. My dad wasn't buying that excuse at all though. He told her she had to leave and took away her phone, the one he pays for, mind you. It's important to note that my parents have been together for 22 years, and throughout that time, my mom has barely worked. She worked for maybe 3 of those years, and that's it. So she doesn't have her own savings or resources to fall back on. I asked her what her plan was, and she said she'd go to work that day and promised me she wouldn't see my cousin anymore. I didn't trust her, but I didn't want to completely cut her off just yet. I still had hope that things could go back to normal, but I was starting to have my doubts. Later that same day, after my classes, I came home to find her car parked at my cousin's house. That was when everything came crashing down. I called my aunt to confirm if my mom was over there, and sure enough, she was. Even though she promised me she wouldn't go back. I didn't waste any more time. I marched over to my cousin's place, furious, and demanded to know what the hell was going on. She claimed she was just tired and didn't feel like going to work. She said it like it was no big deal, like this was all just a little misunderstanding. But I wasn't buying it. I pressed her further, asking her why she was back at my cousin's house after swearing she wouldn't come back. She still couldn't give me a real answer. So I turned to both her and my cousin and asked, "What are your intentions? What's going on here?" They dodged the question at first, but then my cousin finally admitted that he had feelings for my mom. And my mom, she didn't deny it. She said she wanted to take things slow, but was open to the idea of a future relationship with him. At that point, I had to ask what the plan was for her living situation. She told me, "I was hoping I could stay with you for a bit." I said she could, but only if she promised to cut ties with my cousin. I told her it was out of respect for my dad, but she hesitated. There was this long, uncomfortable silence where I could see her struggle with the decision. And that's when I realized she wasn't even thinking about what was best for me or for our family. She was just thinking about herself. I left them to figure it out, feeling defeated. About an hour later, my mom showed up at my place. She didn't mention the text I sent, and instead asked to use my phone to call my dad and my little brother. I didn't say anything and just handed her my phone. After a few hours, my dad called, and they stayed on the phone for over 3.5 hours. When I asked her about it afterward, she was evasive, and I just knew something wasn't right. But I let it go for the moment, figuring she'd tell me eventually. The next day, we went to my dad's house to grab some of her things. I didn't expect things to get any worse, but they did. Somehow, my mom convinced my dad to let her stay in the guest bedroom. She told him she couldn't afford to stay with me, even though I was only charging her $300 a month. She even claimed she'd have to live in her car if she didn't stay at his house. And somehow, my dad fell for it. He let her stay for 2 days, during which they slept together and decided to try and work things out. But then I found out the truth. While she was talking to my dad and brother on the phone that night, she was texting my cousin the whole time using my phone. She was confessing her feelings for him, telling him how much she wanted to be with him. Meanwhile, she was telling my dad there was nothing going on. It didn't end there. She got a new phone and continued texting him secretly while staying at my dad's house. When my dad found out and asked for her new number, she refused. She told him she had only given it to my cousin and one of her coworkers. That was it for my dad. He told her to pack up and leave. He wasn't going to put up with the lies anymore. Now she's living with my cousin. I haven't spoken to her in over a week and a half. I've made up my mind, I'm not going to reach out to her anymore. I'm done. She's lied to me, betrayed me, and used me to get what she wanted. And it's not just her, it's my cousin too. Before all of this, I told her that if she chose to live with him, I wouldn't have anything to do with her anymore. And now it's clear, she picked him over her own kids. A man she's only known for 3 weeks. It's hard to accept that, but I have to. I can't keep living in this emotional whirlwind of lies, betrayal, and manipulation. I'm done with the drama. I just wanted to share this because it's been eating at me, and I don't know what to do anymore. I know what's right for me now, and that's moving on. What do you think about all this?